Welcome to Our Future is Kind, a podcast exploring how we build the future we want to live in, one kind act at a time. I'm your host, Michael G. Neece, president of Our Future is Kind, and your trusted companion as we search out kindness strategies we can use in our everyday lives. Together, as we chase the idea of building a kinder future, we will interview experts in kindness, team building, human motivation, corporate culture building, relationships, plus politicians, artists, and those with a vision for a healthy and kind future, one we all want to live in and deserve to enjoy together. In addition to interviews, we will consider positive depictions of humanity's future in art, literature, the movies, and media. And we will issue kindness challenges each week, give an update about Our Future is Kind, the company, and what it's doing to stay true to its mission. So, let's dive in. Before we start this episode, just a quick reminder about the Human Summit. It's a movement focused on connection over division, kindness over judgment, and empathy over apathy. If you want to learn more, check out www.thehumansummit.com/home. As one of the co-founders of this Human Summit, I'm so excited to tell you just a little bit about it. Co-founder Kevin Hunting and I have put this together with an amazing board of advisors, and we can't wait to share it with you and the rest of the world. Check it out now and reach out to us if you have any questions. Today's guest is Nikki Groom. She is the CEO and founder of Raised Voices, a personal brand strategy firm positioning top speakers for maximum impact so they can lead and shape the future. And we met last August out in Denver at a National Speakers Association meeting. So welcome to the program, Nikki Groom.
It is so wonderful to be here. Even though we just met briefly in that time, I just felt so connected to you, and I'm really, really excited for our conversation today. I know it's going to be wonderful, so very happy to be here.
Well, I love the fact that you are focused on the future, that you are thinking about how to, lead and shape, right? Those are the words that you talk about in the future. And that's an awful lot of what we do here at Our Future is Kind. So before we dig in, I've introduced you, but tell the audience, tell everybody here, what makes you, you?
Oh, that's a good question. I feel like it's an eternal process of discovery, right? We discover more and more about ourselves every day. What makes me me, I think a long time ago, I did one of these, ask everybody, to describe you in 3 words, because I was trying to figure out my personal branding and things like that. And one of the words that kept coming back was real. And I love that because suddenly I could see myself in a different light. And I realized that that is one of my commitments. I show up as I am, and I'm an open book, and take me as you will. And I think that is a quality that people really appreciate. And so actually that now completely carries through into the work that I do with other people. I hold the space for them to show up fully as they are, and then reflect back to them their brilliance. And I'm not trying to create some kind of persona for them or anything that doesn't already exist, but really a brand and a platform that does them justice as the individual they already are, with all of their lived experiences and perspectives and insights, so that they can really go forth and do their great work in the world.
Well, you certainly come across as a warm and very real person. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the podcast. And it's, I think, also one of the reasons why I gravitated toward sitting near you at whatever big event was going on at the conference, because I always knew that you were going to lean over and say, oh my gosh, did you know any of this? And, we would have a nice little conversation amongst ourselves. So I love that you bring your whole self to whatever you do.
Well, and right back at you, I just want to say, because I think sometimes that's just much easier with certain people. And when you can just tell that someone is just leading from a place that is very authentic and grounded in empathy and humanity, it's just easier to be real with those people and to have that immediate rapport, which I think we both felt. So the feeling is mutual.
Well, I'm honored. Thank you. Yeah, so tell me a little bit more about this work, because I am a speaker. I go out to places and try to have an impact on audiences. And I know that you offer these great services for speakers. So tell everybody a little bit about how you help us change the world through our work.
Yes, absolutely. Well, It basically, my company now, Raised Voices, is a culmination of all the work that I've been doing for so many years. So you can probably clock the accent. I'm from England originally, and I came to the States 16 years ago. I came for a marketing job. I was supposed to stay here for a year, ended up staying for 5 years with that company. They sponsored my green card. I then started my own business, and I was really drawn to working with individuals who have these incredible messages and a real heart to share what they knew with the world. But oftentimes they couldn't really find that bridge. They couldn't really cross the gap between everything that they knew and wanted to share and get other people to listen to them. And so my work has really been very much grounded in strategic communications and positioning and marketing and all of that fun stuff. But ultimately, what I'm really doing for folks, and now, the past 6 or so years, increasingly with professional speakers, it's pretty much my bread and butter at this point, is really figuring out how can we create a platform for you where there is no disconnect between how you show up on stage and how you show up online. And so oftentimes, if you go to a speaker's website that is kind of due for a bit of an overhaul, it might be fine and kind of speak to some of what it is that they do, but is it really that next notch above in terms of really encapsulating that energy, that dynamism, that way that they engage audiences on stage? And that's really what I'm trying to do for them. I'm trying to really, again, see all that they are and all that they bring to the table, and ensuring that we translate that for audiences, so that whoever comes to their website or whoever reads their stuff online has immediate sense of who they are and the value they deliver.
So you're a conduit for people to show their awesomeness to the world. Is that accurate?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, I think so. And actually, I really love working with people who are true experts in their field, because obviously I'm not an expert at everything, and most of the time I have no clue. And so it's so wonderful to just really be in that position to ask certain questions that just draw out someone's brilliance and their genius, and get a sense of, how they look at the world and their beliefs and their approach and their mission and their message. And we had talked about the future at the top of this interview, what their vision for change is. And so I always love to ask that question: when you look ahead, what do you see that you want to be different? And I also talk about it in terms of, it's almost like right now, today, the work that we're doing, we're planting little seeds, and those seeds are hopefully gonna really take root and eventually grow into lovely big trees. And there may come a time when we kind of pass on the baton and someone else carries on our great work. And so what does that tree really turn into? And so that's really what I'm trying to help folks think about. We can do as much as we can within the lifetime that we have, but ultimately, what kind of change do we want to see on the planet? And that can be within our communities, within our workplaces, within our countries, and the world as a whole. So it's a really interesting space to play in, because it's sometimes difficult to give ourselves permission to dream in that way, but I think it's so important if we're to hold on to any sense of optimism in a world that feels so uncertain and so chaotic at times.
It makes you, in some ways, the perfect guest for this program, because an awful lot of what we do here is we try to envision what an idealistic future should be. The idea of owning our power, which I think is something you're alluding to here, right? All of the different speakers that you work with are trying to, in some way, positively impact the future of humanity, and lift people out of difficult situations and help them into better lives. So I'm going to ask you a question that's a little bit opposite to all of that. When have you encountered people who are not necessarily as kind as you would hope for them to be? And what are the strategies for helping them learn? What are the strategies for you dealing with it yourself so that you can bring your obviously a very kind person. How do you continue to be kind in those moments where you feel really pinched and pushed into a situation where somebody's not being so nice to you? What do you do?
Oh, it's a good question. And I certainly have had my fair share of experiences, but I almost want to answer that question in a slightly different way, because here's sort of this realization that's been dawning on me in recent years, and particularly more recently, because I think that there is a lot of othering that we can do to somebody or a group of people if they don't hold our points of view. And there can be a lot of anger with that, and a ton of misunderstanding. And when I think back to how I grew up, where I grew up, the kind, my family and their beliefs and the people that were surrounding me, and now how I look at the world. And, I'm not pointing blame at anybody, but, my sort of journey of self-discovery and understanding what I value and what makes sense for me in terms of, what everyone deserves to have access to. I feel like I can see my evolution and my journey. And so I don't want to pretend that I always have this really evolved humanitarian way of looking at the world. I think that it can be so easy to feel like if you don't get someone else, to shut them out, to not want to have anything to do with them. And, I certainly have been guilty, I guess, of creating a bit of a bubble of people who only talk about the things that I talk about. But I actually think that when there is that misunderstanding, or when we feel misunderstood by somebody, and when we experience some of those negative emotions, or we just cannot fathom how somebody could believe what they believe, or they could act in the way that they act, I think that there are times when we can lean into empathy, even in those moments. Like, that's probably the biggest challenge and the biggest opportunity. And actually, I think it's the biggest invitation right now, because it would be so easy for us to remain polarized and for us to not try and reach across the gap. But something has to give, something has to change if we are to co-create a better future together that really sees every human being as equal, and as having a voice, and having, a role to play, a part to contribute in society as we know it. And so I share that because I think that probably my biggest life lesson has been self-love, which might sound fluffy and things like that. But ultimately, anytime that I feel disconnected, or I feel resentful, or I just feel a little bit at odds, I realize that I've become disconnected from that sort of deep inner knowing of who I am and what I'm capable of. It's really easy to become disconnected from that place. And so I think that it sounds very simplistic, but I think that that's such a great place to start, is starting with understanding for ourselves and forgiving ourselves for not always understanding, or not always approaching situations or people in the way that we would like, and for using these opportunities and these experiences as a chance to practice being the kind of person we would like to be, and yeah, leading with empathy and seeking to understand. There was a podcast quite a few years ago that I still reference and I still love so much, by Dylan Marin. It's called Conversations with People Who Hate Me. And so he had a YouTube video. He's a member of the LGBTQ community, and he would often get vitriol posted in the comments on his YouTube videos. And he actually decided to conduct a bit of a social experiment. So he invited some of these people who had posted these comments to come onto his podcast and have a conversation with him. And you would think, gosh, who in their right minds would do that? But actually, the results were frankly astounding. And it wasn't even necessarily that they would have this great conversation and sort of part ways like, yeah, we're completely on the same page. But what they came to do was they could see each other's humanity. And it almost without exception, the person who had posted whatever they posted said, I was having a bad day, or this was happening, or this is kind of how I see people like you. And so it was just this really amazing space for two humans to come together and talk and connect and communicate and try and find a way forward that didn't feel completely at odds with one another. And so, yeah, I think that's possible for all of us. And I don't think, it's so easy to take sides and feel like one side is better than another. And I think that that's where we go wrong. I think we have to see everything that's happening for someone, with someone, to someone, and we can make so many assumptions. And I think it's so important to break out of that headspace again if we're to come together and create something even better. And we have to allow that room for people to go on their learning journeys and to evolve. And of course there are times for calling out and calling in, but at the same time, I think having as much grace as we can muster with people is also important at certain times. So yeah.
I love that your answer definitely reinforces something that I've believed for a long time, which is that fighting fire with fire is not ever going to produce the results that we hope for in building a kinder future. You mentioned understanding, and that if we don't hear each other and truly see each other, that's where things get broken. And for the people who are having a bad day and left those mean comments, on those postings, it is very interesting, because if instead of saying, hey, come on my podcast, they had said, oh, well, I'm going to just yell right back, or I'm going to delete the comment and hide you and dehumanize you by making sure nobody can read your comment. I think it's wonderful to hear this perspective on how we can, look at it's a misunderstanding. We're not really seeing each other. We're not really hearing each other. Not so much somebody's right and somebody's wrong. It's really, we're not hearing each other well enough. And I love that messaging, Nikki. That's great.
Yeah, yeah, and by the way, this isn't to say that I haven't been or have the capacity to be or am a firefighter, as someone who feels very angry at times, and I think that
Sure.
that anger can be fuel, and it can tell us what we need to do and what we need to say. And I think there are times for that, right? And then at times as well, there are times to listen and to practice patience, and to try and better understand ourselves and each other. So it's certainly not about the sort of toxic positivity frame of mind where, oh, everyone's wonderful, we just have to bring out the best in people, because there are definitely personality disorders out there, and things that are extremely difficult to even grapple with. But I do believe that there's a way through if we can just slow down enough to try and put our assumptions aside, and better understand one another. I certainly don't have all the answers, but I think that that's where it starts. So, yeah.
Slowing down. I love that idea, because, yeah, it is so quick for us to just, well, I'm on a deadline, so I'm just going to fire back a mean comment and move on. I think it's a lot different if you have time, and if you make the time to see and hear the other person. That's lovely. I would love to ask you, one of the central premises of this program is that we have to establish a target of what the future looks like if we're ever going to hit that target. If like you have all of these great conversations with so many speakers about how they want to change the world for the better. They want to make the future into something radiant and glowing and wondrous. So please go with me on this little thought experiment. It is now 2125. We are 100 years into the future. Humanity has done great work. All of these speakers that you have worked with have flourished. All of the thought leaders have somehow done all of the right things at all of the right turns, and it's 100 years in the future. What's there? What does that future look like?
First of all, thank you. Like, that actually makes me want to cry, and I'm not sure if it's like sad or happy tears, but just that image of that future. It's like, please be true. Please come to pass. Um, I I feel like for me, and for so many, right, it's this idea of a world that looks different in the best of ways, and a world where equity, which is like now a no word. I just read a list of words today that, yeah, apparently, put a line through it, can't put that out there. But yeah, and a more equitable world where everyone has a voice, and the playing field is frankly equalized. And maybe there's a black woman president of the United States, or trans people have the same rights as anyone else. And it's almost like, oh my gosh, times really used to be different. Things were different for folks, and the same rules didn't apply at one point. And I would love the idea for kids then, especially, to just not be able to fathom a different world where things, where not everybody had the same rights and the same opportunities, the same access. Yeah, I mean, that would be wonderful. And I think that that's what I'm personally working towards. And I am so lucky to work with the clients that I do because consistently they are folks with a high level of expertise. And oftentimes it comes down to organizational culture and leadership and finding ways to better collaborate, develop those relationships through healthy communication and breaking, cycles that are toxic, quite frankly, and that make people feel less than. And so I don't know how, but I consistently attract those kinds of clients who are doing that kind of work. And so I feel like we're so aligned in terms of the world that we're all creating in our different ways and in our different capacities. And so that would be my dream. Yeah.
It's a beautiful future. Sign me up. I'm ready. I'm ready to be there. So now I ask you the harder question, which is, what are all of those right actions that it took to get to that beautiful, amazing future? What are the kind acts and courageous acts to get us there?
Yeah, I don't think I'm an expert by any stretch of the imagination. I do know that where power is traditionally held, there is so much potential there, and so that oftentimes is within those large organizations. Um, they hold so much responsibility and so much weight because of the way that our world is structured, and so I do think that there is. I love the idea of people going into organizations as these messengers as these people with a different view of how things can be and kind of infiltrating the status quo in that way. I think that's a part of it, but I think it needs to be an approach that just comes at this from all kinds of different angles. And I think that the power of the collective is going to be the most important thing. And so a lot of the work that I'm doing is really helping people think about what is that vision for change. And your question just articulated that so beautifully. But yeah, in 100 years, what do you want to be different, and what can we do today to start to use our own influence and impact to affect change? And it might not feel very much today, it might not feel like we're doing a huge amount, but I think we can also only do what we know to do with what we have. And so it might feel small, but we have to know that there are other people who feel the same way, who are speaking up about the same things, who are taking similar actions, who we can oftentimes come together with and work together with to see things be different. And so I definitely don't have all the answers, but I know that I love to follow and surround myself with people who are doing really interesting work in that space and in this space and learn from them. And there are communities where people come and say, what now? And then it's just this wonderful space for people to kind of share, well, here's kind of what I've been thinking. What do you think about this? And kind of creating a plan for what's next together, and how can we take that type of individual and collective action that really does make a difference. So I don't know, and I think that's a part of it. Yeah.
Well, I think the personal ownership piece is really, really important because, sure, one person pushing really hard to get the rock up the hill, it's only a small push, but there are 7 billion, 8 billion of us, and 8 billion little pushes is plenty. That is easily enough to get that rock up any mountain that we want.
Yeah. And I always say, that the greatest gift that we can give to the world is to let other people know that they're not alone. Because if you're feeling a certain kind of way, I can guarantee that somebody else is feeling that way. And so to not be afraid to reach out, to share what's going on with you, to talk through it in communities that you feel like you can be a part of, or even creating your own communities when you do run into like-minded folks like yourself, Michael, when we met at Influence. Yeah, I think that's the way forward. Absolutely. So.
Well, I'm glad to be on the same team and on the same journey with you.
Me too. Me too.
Fabulous. So you are trying to help people who are very, very inspirational go and be very visible and be effective in what they do. And thereby, in a lot of ways, you are also quite an inspirational person. I mean, there's so many people who have said your name to me, and I'm like, oh, I know her. She's great. Of course. So you allow these big changes to come about. And so you as an inspirational person, where do you get your inspiration? What inspires Nikki Groom and makes you feel like, oh man, anything is possible today?
I wish I could answer that simply. I don't know what his. I do feel like I have a client who says she's a belligerent optimist, and I love that because I think there's something of that in me too. And I can't tell you where that comes from, honestly, because
Sure.
it's not like I haven't, like so many of us have over the years had, mental health things that crop up, or just struggles with how the world is or what's happening. And so I had almost hesitate to say that, but there is something in me that knows things can be different. And I really gravitate towards other people who feel the same way.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I lost track of your question in sharing that. Oh, God,
Yeah,
it just gone
being
like,
inspired. What gets you?
yeah,
I mean, are
that's
there
right.
TV shows or books, or is it listening to the speeches of those that you do work with? I mean, what gets you going?
Yeah, I guess I was like making apologies for being I'm like, why am I inspirational? But to answer your question, I do think that going back to what I was sharing a little bit about earlier is that I'm always looking to kind of feed my brain and my heart with an understanding of other people's experiences. And so from the first, client I ever had as an entrepreneur in my own business, learning about who they were, why they did what they did, their beliefs, their approach, their mission, their message, it was sort of like coming to me like osmosis. I was kind of absorbing it all and then taking on board what inspired me and motivated me. And, even things like learning many, many years ago that you can actually rewire your brain. I was like, wow, that's super powerful. And, dealing with a lot of my own limiting beliefs and finding ways to reframe those beliefs in a way that supported what I wanted to do in my life. And that being a continuing practice as well. And so that's definitely, my clients have been a huge source of inspiration. I also should say this because I am an avid reader and I love my fiction books. I actually studied English literature, read a ton of Shakespeare. It's not always my favorite these days, but can't fault Shakespeare. But I read a lot of fiction books, and I love to read books where the protagonist or the characters are from a different country or a different time, and the context is, it's fictional, but it's also factual. So there are certain events that take place, and that is just a wonderful way to be able to put yourself in someone else's shoes and be inspired by someone else's experience. And so I think that, and I think inspiration can only really come when we see someone else doing what we didn't think was possible. And so I love keeping my eyes peeled for those folks, because as soon as you see it, as soon as you see someone speaking up about something or doing something or achieving something that you maybe didn't think was possible for you, suddenly it tells you maybe it could be possible. So I think that people who are really leading by example in that way, it's almost like I collect those stories and they become a part of who I am, or what I hope for as well. And most of all, I think my own experiences have taught me that we can't see ourselves clearly most of the time. And so pretty much every single client that I've worked with will come to me and say, I don't know how to talk about myself, or I don't know how to write about myself, or I don't know how to communicate what it is in a way that people can readily understand. Everybody has that problem. And it's because we're in our heads and inside our hearts all the time. So we have all these ideas swirling around and experiences, and how on earth do you thread all those together? And oftentimes we can second guess ourselves. And I definitely have a lifetime of second guessing myself and grappling with self-doubt, as so many of us do. And so I think coming to understand that self-doubt actually has no basis in reality most of the time, and it's messages that we've absorbed from the outside, can be really helpful knowledge, especially when I'm working with other people and I want to inspire them and show them what's possible. Because again, that not being able to see yourself clearly, it can be problematic, it can hold you back. And so my favorite thing to do is to be that mirror, to reflect back to people their brilliance so that they can see the path forward for themselves. I think one of the analogies that comes to me right now is that one of my clients told me when we created their platform and their website for them, they felt like we'd given them something like a pair of shoes that was one size too big. And that's kind of what we're trying to do. It's like, actually, let's create something that you can grow and evolve into that is reflective of who you are now and who you have the capacity to be and the work that you have the capacity to grow into. And so I think, yeah, it's a combo of stuff, outside influences, my own internal journey, and then just having that opportunity to reflect it back to other people and to see what they do with that inspiration and to see them go to greater and greater heights.
I love that you derive inspiration from so many places. Yeah. It's hopefully it's instructive for everybody who's tuned into this to really realize they can find inspiration. If they want to lead an inspired life, they can find it somewhere, whether it's through the literature or it's through these great speakers who have crafted messages that are impactful and helpful and practical and in some ways can help them. So I love the fact that you just pull it in from everywhere. That's great.
Yes. Just a little sponge over here.
That's fantastic. So it's hard to believe that the time is flying by so quickly here, but can you tell everybody what's next for Nikki Groom? What are you working on right now? What are the big projects, and how can people get in touch with you?
Yes, my website is raised-voices.com. That's probably the best way to get in touch with me, or I'm also at Nikki Groom on pretty much every social platform, so please feel free to reach out.
We should point out that it is Nikki, in case you're not reading.
Oh,
along.
yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you. I would say what's next for me. I love and cherish the work that I'm doing with Raised Voices, and that will absolutely continue. And then I think there's an opportunity for me to start to think about what does Nikki Groom, the thought leader, want to say. And actually the Influence Conference last year, the National Speakers Association Conference, was a great igniter for me, because I think I had shelved that for a while and now I'm kind of ready to get back to it. I wrote a book in 2020 called A Power of Your Own, and I think I'm ready for the next book. I think I'm ready for the next signature talk, and just sort of trying to walk my talk a little bit. I'm forever telling my clients, the world needs to hear your message. And so kind of giving myself a loving little kick up the butt to get out there and to say what I have to say and see if it resonates with people, because sometimes we might have heard something someplace before, but the messenger makes all the difference. And maybe I could make all that difference to somebody. And that's what I'm exploring now and looking to do as we move into 2025 here.
Well, to all of our speaker friends who are listening in, I want to encourage you to look up Nikki, seek her out, find out what she can offer you. And I can't wait to get a copy of your book. I'm going to have to look it up on Amazon once we're done here.
I'll send you one. Yeah.
Oh, well, you're very kind. We'll do a book swap. I'll send you mine as well.
Okay.
And yeah.
Perfect.
No, that's it's been wonderful speaking with you and hearing somebody else who is so committed to making the future into what we all want it to be. So, Nikki Groom, thank you for joining the program.
It's been my real pleasure. Thank you so much, Michael.
This episode's Kindness Challenge. Slow down before you respond. When conflict or misunderstanding arises, pause and ask yourself, what am I not seeing? What am I not understanding yet? Practice curious compassion instead of reactive judgment. Kindness grows when we make space for others' stories, even ones we disagree with. So the challenge this week, reach out to someone whose perspective differs from yours and ask them a sincere question, and then just listen. Want to stay inspired? Read some fiction that is set in an unfamiliar time or place. Just like Nikki advises, the more you can pull yourself out of your own life and into the lives of others, the more you can listen to their stories, especially those that are different from your own, the more you can show kindness. Thanks again for listening to our Future is Kind podcast, a podcast in search of a kinder future. Go out there and do something kind.